Welcome back to Donuts for Breakfast. I am here again with Mr. Markdale of RX Safe Marin. We're going to talk about his bio in a little bit. I just let spring it on you.
Oh, okay.
We could,
It's a surprise.
if we have time. Apologies for missing the 9:30 live. We'll be making some changes to our show, so we'll let you guys know when the new tune-in time is. Let's get into it. Mark, what are we talking about
You
today?
know, I always like to think some good thoughts. So in Marin County, we don't have Winchell's or Dunkin' Donuts, really. Mm-hmm. But we do have Johnny's and Krispy Kremes. And
Johnny's Donuts
aren't they the best?
are a blessing.
They are gourmet donut. What can you do with the donut?
Everything, according to Johnny.
Yeah. No, I bless them. They have
They
a great
are.
product, and I come from a humble donut beginnings. You know that, remember?
I didn't actually.
Winchell's Donuts when I was 12 years old up in Santa
We
Rosa.
did talk about Winchell's Donuts.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's what I was saying. It
Special place in your
took me
heart.
about almost 50 years to get on this show. So
Welcome.
my whole life
You
was
have
coming
arrived.
to here.
You have arrived.
So what I was going over in my mind was there is a lot of folks out there in struggle, and that's what I've when I share about the death data, and that's that finality, and then you work backwards from it. And the CDC maintains that every loss of life is equal to 1,000 people in struggle in some form or fashion.
Okay.
And they actually have the graphics behind it. They have all the data behind it. So, when you're looking at death statistics, it's a real thing. And it's kind of like because you can't go beyond the death. It's like right there.
The finite, that's the end.
And then you're able to work backwards and hopefully get upstream to get ahead of it. So one of the groups in Marin County that I'd like to shine the light on a little bit
Yes, please.
is Compassionate Friends of Marin. And Compassionate Friends of Marin are parents who have lost their kids in some form or fashion. Could be a car crash. It could be cancer. It could be any number of things. The most difficult by far are drug overdose deaths and suicides.
Right.
Those are just incomprehensible at times, especially a suicide where you just don't see it coming.
Right.
You don't have a kid who's depressed. You have a kid who's functioning apparently normal.
Right.
And then all of a sudden one day they made a permanent decision for a temporary problem. So the Compassionate Friends of Marin, they put out a newsletter every couple months, and it's a very nice newsletter, and in it has the listing of the losses, so to speak, and families support this. They have a meeting once a month. It's meant to be parents helping other parents get through the grief.
Right.
And that's huge.
Yes.
Because, and they actually have a beautiful garden over by Marin General, or the Marin Health Center,
Okay.
right across the street. And you can walk on that pathway by the creek.
Yeah.
There's these boulders that have memorial plaques for each of their children. Yeah, so that's a pretty cool thing.
That is cool.
But I highly recommend it. And, I came to it in a certain way because I had been dealing with so many folks who were losing their kids.
Right.
That for myself, I'm kind of like going, geez, this is like
a lot.
tough stuff to deal with.
Yeah.
And luckily they brought me in, and I was on the advisory board for a while, and that was helpful. And just getting them their information when somebody's lost their child, having them plug into it. And it might not be for everybody, but it's something that works.
Right.
Okay, so
It's
that's
accessible.
That's very important. So that's number one. Number two, Marin County has an incredibly robust AA community,
Yes, it does.
and that's fantastic. I mean, kudos, because it's all different levels. I mean, you've got AA, you've got Al-Anon, Narcanon. You have different kinds of meetings. The biggest one that I've mentioned before is the Parent Al-Anon meeting.
Yep.
That's across from Miller Creek Middle School on Tuesday mornings. On average, 200, 250 parents are in that room.
Wow.
I mean, and you just sit and listen. You hear the stories.
Right.
And, there's a couple of truisms that I've brought out of my touch with AA at times is one drink is too many, 1,000 is never enough. If you just kind of repeat that a second. If you are somebody who's in trouble with alcohol or any substance,
Right.
but alcohol is very specific, one drink is too many, 1,000 is never enough. So you can't entertain that one drink.
No.
You've got to go total abstinence.
Right.
And it's interesting because I've utilized that same concept with especially fathers that I've met who've lost their sons. And I'll say that, because usually to the T, a lot of dads are like, my kid wasn't an addict. My kid wasn't addicted. My kid wasn't. He was just smoking some pot. Well, your kid died from a needle in his arm with heroin. So how did he get from pot into injecting the needle?
Right.
And for most people, when you do a drug inventory of youth, many will say, never, 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 never will I ever put a needle in my arm.
Yeah.
Well, how do you get down that road that you are putting that needle in your arm?
Right.
And all the derivatives that can come from that, hepatitis C, the different diseases you can get when you're sharing needles with somebody.
Right.
Yuck.
Right.
It's sick. So another thing that I love about AA is the Serenity Prayer. And,
I do love the Serenity Prayer.
it's and actually there's a mug that one of my sons brought home. And it's, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yep.
Because when you have an addict in your home or in your life, it's beyond your control. You cannot deal with it. And I'll speak from experience. I mean, that person, you'll look them straight in the eye. You think they're telling you the truth.
And they will lie to your face.
Yeah.
And they will rationalize all of their behavior.
So why? How does that happen? I mean, it's you and me are pretty sober folks.
Yeah.
We're parents,
Yes.
married.
Yes.
We have our lives.
Yes.
And, you wake up some mornings, you're tired. Or you may not wake up feeling good.
Yeah.
But
Good days and bad
you
days.
got to pinch yourself in the butt and say, okay, keep going.
You move. You move.
You just said it.
You move.
For me, on certain days, like I can tinker at home for hours. There's things that I can tinker, chores, doing this, laundry. I'm the laundry guy at home.
Yeah.
30 years of laundry. It's all good. But what happened is, time can slip away.
Yeah.
It's like sands through the hourglass.
Oh, yeah.
So are the days
And
of
it
our
goes
lives.
faster.
Yeah.
The older you get, the faster time moves.
And all of a sudden, mortality
Which
is in
is a
your
quantum
face.
truth, by the way.
Say it again?
It is a quantum truth. The older you get, the faster time moves.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
So I had a professor when I was in early days in college, and old gentleman came with the bow tie and came in and told us that.
It is.
And it stuck with me.
Yes.
And here you are saying it too.
It is a quantum truth. But to not interrupt you, like you tinker, you.
Yeah. So when I'm at home, but you can fritter away time.
Right.
But then at a certain point, for me, I've always been an early bird. And so for me, it's like, get up, get out. Saturday, Sunday morning, I love to let my wife just sleep in. I protect the kids. I'm always like, shh, mom's sleeping.
Yeah.
Give her some extra sleep time.
Yeah.
And I'll go out and I'll do errands out wherever I got to go.
Yeah.
Because once you engage, and I see people I know, and it's like two sticks. If you're going to spark a fire,
You gotta rub the sticks together, right?
Yeah.
And again, we have a social science
Let's do
parallels
it.
happening.
Let's do it.
But it's entropy, Objects in motion remain in motion.
Yep.
Objects at rest remain at rest. If you just move.
Yeah. Well,
You can push through a lot. You can push through a bad day. You could push through bad feelings. You can push through hard moments. Sometimes it's just movement. It's a little movement.
Mm-hmm.
It's making yourself a cup of coffee, even though you didn't have time to shower.
yep.
It's washing your face, even if you didn't have time to brush your teeth. Like it could be those little movements. It's committing to your first AA meeting.
Yep.
It's it's asking for help. It's that phone call that kid makes to his friend and says, "Thank you for being my friend, and I have some things for you." And it's that friend that goes, "That doesn't sound right. Why is he giving away his stuff?"
Yep. That's a big one.
You know what I mean?
That's actually one of the suicide warnings, that when somebody is, or they're starting to appear elated, happy, because they've made this decision that takes a weight off their shoulders,
Right.
but it is a devastating, selfish decision in many ways for the loved ones around you,
Right.
because had you had the ability to just open up,
Right.
there's tons of help out there,
Right.
but people are
Choices.
bringing it in,
Yeah.
and going back to movement, I mean, I think elders, there's a real problem. As you get older, you get more tired, you get immobilized, you have this ache and pain, you don't go out for walks as much, you slow down, and then you're in a recliner,
Right.
and then you pass away in your recliner. I mean, it's just
move. And as human beings, we are designed for movement.
Yep.
Mentally and physically.
Huge.
We are
Huge.
designed for movement. Our brain is designed to take in stimulus. So being out, being engaged, that engages our brain, that staves off dementia, that staves off Alzheimer's, that maintains those memory pathways, right? So engagement and movement is not just for the body, it's also for the mind in a myriad of different ways. And
Well, we talked before about muscle memory. And muscle memory is used a lot in the law enforcement world because when you've got a split-second decision and you've got to reach for that gun or taser, you've got to be able to, and it's that muscle memory. And taser has messed up a lot of officers because, and even the positioning of the taser, do you position it in such a way that you have to reach over to get it? Or do you position it so that you're able to grab it like this and deal with it? But that's a lot like pulling your gun.
Yeah.
So in the brain, how you're able to get those split-second decisions. When you're on the freeway, you see something in the roadway and say, "Oh crap!" Do you just roll over it and take the damage,
right?
Or do you try to swerve and then you're going to cause a car crash with the car next to you or the cars behind you?
Right.
It is one of those things that your brain. But when you slow down, when you get sick or older, you tend to kind of just. Yeah, it's not
Unless
good.
you don't.
Yeah, you got to keep. My grandma was great. Ida, she was a petite lady, and came from the Boston area originally, so she had a little accent going. Very petite though, very small lady. And but every morning she'd wake up with her pad of paper and was always doing these little math equations.
Yep.
To wake her brain up and get these things going, and I loved it. I mean,
Little things that you could do. My aunt does that. She regularly writes down all 50 states and then their capitals to keep her brain.
That's a big one.
It keeps her
even go
sharp. And she's in her 60s. My mom is in her 70s, in her mid 70s. And one of the things I say when people ask, you see your mom every day, like you have a relationship, like that kind of relationship with your mom that you see every day. I was like, it's mutually beneficial for all parties involved. I get to hang out with my mom. My mom gets to hang out with her grandkids, and her grandkids keep her young.
Bingo. That's huge. Yep. And it's funny because with my wife and daughter, I always joke they're part of the cosmic sisterhood.
Mm-hmm. What is that?
Well, the cosmic sisterhood, it's kind of like females helping females.
Ah.
And it is. You're part of the cosmic sisterhood with your aunt and your mother and, the other women in your life who, because we've had some good discussions off camera about how women in your community, how they raise their children, how they, can you share a little bit on that? Like how it's like, whereas unfortunately, I think in a lot of our white entitled communities in Marin, they do a disservice to their kids because, they helicopter over them or you hurt your knee. Come on. Let's boo-boo.
Yeah.
Instead of get up, get going.
Yeah. The hand-me-down of independence. The Black community is very much a matriarchal community. That's in a lot of ways kind of by design. That's over the last 400 years. We've had a lot of things have repeatedly happened in our community to say that women are they're going to be the staples. They're going to be the stayers, the sticking point. But we are brought forward into the world in a state of, what are you going to do next? What am I teaching you next? How am I going to push you into adulthood in a way that it's going to make you successful? So you're not sleeping in.
Yeah.
You're getting up early. It's Sunday. We clean in the house, the whole house. And by the way, your room is the house. It's not just yours. It's a part of the house. So it's going to be clean because we're cleaning the house.
Love it.
There's the sense of community starts in the home, and then it spreads outward. You're not just responsible for the people, and this isn't going to be every neighborhood or every African American community, but the ones that I was raised in and the ones that I know, you're not just responsible for who's in your house. You're responsible for your cousins. You're responsible for your aunts and uncle. You're responsible for Mama Ida, who you're not actually related to, but you're going to make sure she eats. Somebody is bringing her food. Like,
which is the village approach.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the community.
it is.
And say, hey, we're together.
Yes.
And looking out for each other.
Yes.
I think that's huge.
And it's from early childhood on. Like, you know who your parents are, but you also know that every other parent in that community is keeping an eye on you and is keeping you safe and is going to be responsible for you. And it's interesting dynamic to see that on a playground, for example. My husband is white. We have some differences of opinion when it comes to child rearing, but we make it work. But it's interesting to him because he's hyper focused on our child when we go to the park. He's very focused on our kids. And I am forever scanning when I'm at the park because every single child that I see is in part my responsibility at that park. And in return, I would hope that if somebody sees something going on with my child, as a parent, they would respond. And as such, are aware of all of the children at the park. And I think that's as much a part of my culture as it is just who I am as a person.
I love what you said because so you can envision the playground.
Right.
So let's expand the playground to middle school and high school.
Right.
And this theory of looking out for each other and making sure you got eyes on.
Yes.
Because, if you have one of the friends of your son over and you realize this kid is something's off.
Yeah.
Could be depression, could be substance use, it could be something going on, that you kind of go, So how would you handle that? Would you talk to your son first and then talk to the parents of the friend, or what would you do?
Questions. So questions first. If the child is in my home, obviously my kid is friends with them, and my kid and I have a really close relationship, and I am comfortable asking questions like, hey, what's going on with homeboy? He seems pretty sad today, or he didn't seem to engage, or he's been at my house. He's been over a lot lately. Is there something going on? Has he talked to you? So it's engaging questions with my son first to see if he's gotten anything, or if he's just being a good friend. It's like, my friend needs to be in our space, so he's in our space. And then I think next steps would be a conversation with parents, with their parents, with whichever parent I feel closest to. But again, that's an engaging, that could be touchy as well.
Yep.
Because I have been in environments where I was friends with kids who actively avoided a relationship with their parents. And those were hard relationships to bring into my home.
Yep.
Because my mom has a really hard time not knowing other people's parents. I have a really hard time with that. Like, if you're going to be in my home, I need to know your parents. If I'm going to let you into their home, I need to have an open line of communication with their parents.
Which is huge.
It is.
It's true. But
that potentially cuts off so many kids from me. Like, that is the thing that I struggle with. I've had kids in the neighborhood that I'm like, okay, you can play with them, but that kid can't be in our home and you can't go to their kid's home. But that mom in me is like, but what if there's something going on? Like, there's a reason why this kid is always asking me for food. There's a reason why this kid is always asking me if we have any spare clothes. Like, the mom in me is like, give him what he needs. But at the same time, like, I'm like, how do I find out why this kid is asking? Is this like, is this like just net home training?
you hope the universe is going to bring you together at some point with the mom.
Yeah.
And interface, but at the same time, you're getting in somebody else's business.
Exactly.
So you got to be a little cautious of that. And I mentioned before about the snitching factor, especially with girls. I have not heard the story so much with guys for some reason. It's much more girls. It's different.
No, it's there. We just had a snitches get stitches conversation with my son where they had an altercation in this fourth grade. They had an altercation where one of the kids that they were Zooming with, because they have like after school Zoom parties or whatever, was being racially derogatory.
Toward your son?
Towards his friend, his other black friend. And I asked him, was like, how are you guys, because he's in your friend group, right? He's like, yeah. I was like, how are you guys choosing to deal with it? He was like, we don't want to talk to anybody about it. We don't want it to be a big thing. Mm-hmm. But we're letting him know that it's not okay. So it's that internal. I think guys are very much they just deal with it. It's insular, like boys when they're involved. It's that whole like, do get out and move on kind of mentality.
Girls tend, You also have to factor in the drama factor,
Right.
which girls tend to go that way
They
more.
are the drama.
It's like, oh boy. Yeah, we could just stop there a second.
Right.
Just remember
Pray
back
for
to
all the parents of daughters in the world. But yeah, that concept but again, that's not on asking the questions of my son kind of lets me know the nature of that relationship, right?
Yeah.
Do you know? Do you want me to stay out of it? I need you to take that next step then. This is where you have to step out as a friend, and we need to parlay about how you're going to be a helpful friend in this situation. If you don't want me to step in, then you're going to have to step up.
I love it. I love it. That's the way, I mean, luckily you've got the relationship with your son that works that way.
Yeah.
In most families, I would say it's difficult to achieve that because parents are zipping along, doing this, doing that, doing this, and kids are zipping along, doing this, so they're missing each other. They're disconnecting instead of being able to sit down and really talk it out.
I should start young. I just swear on camera.
Oh my God. FCC, she didn't mean it.
So sorry. It starts young. I mean, the little things, for me, that was always, I learned pre-parenthood, because my degree is in psychology. I did the early childhood studies and all of that, And one of those cliches, when they're little, they'll tell you everything. Mm-hmm. Listen to the little things. So when they're older, they'll tell you the big things.
Oh, I like that. It's usually shuttle time when you're shuttling between school to wherever. That's usually the time where you're able to get some good listening going.
Oh, yes.
And especially if they're talking between friends. You kind of eavesdrop on that conversation.
The eavesdropping I did. But it was usually me and Azrael for a long time. And it started in preschool when I started asking questions. So I conditioned him young. You're going to answer my questions in this car. And they were not.
Captive audience.
Yes. And they were not open-ended questions.
Yeah.
Who did you eat with today? Who did you play with today? Tell me something funny that happened. Was someone kind to you today? Did you do a kindness? They're asking him to actively engage in the day.
Not a yes/no answer.
No, not a yes/no answer.
How was your day? Fine.
Tell me something funny. That was a big one for me when he got to elementary school. I was like, tell me something funny that happened today. And then as he got older, it was engaging in the things that I knew were distinctly him. How many times did you fall during soccer today? Like things that let him be him in my space.
Yep.
And so now we're at the point where I can take him to the park with his sister and she's off playing and doing my scan thing and he sits down next to me and I can say, babe, do you and your friends talk about sex? Because he's gotten to that place where he's like, Mom asks questions.
Yeah.
She asks
no way I'm getting out of this one.
And his response was, Mom, honestly, yeah, we do. And I said, okay, you'll have to tell me about that soon. He said, okay. And that was the end of it.
Yep.
It was a door opened and he allowed me to come inside. And now I know that is a conversation that he's comfortable having with me.
Love it.
Love it.
So your husband, how does he talk to your kids?
I don't know. I know that they do. I definitely know that him and my son have a very like father-son relationship in that they do the fishing and they're out together with the fishing and they bond over throwing the football around. But honestly, I think that Azrael has created two separate safe spaces for himself. Like there are things he's comfortable with me talking about and things that he's comfortable with his dad talking about.
Yep.
And at this point, we're okay with that.
Good.
He's getting all of his needs met emotionally and mentally. So, and I think the awkward, uncomfortable, like cringy stuff, he's more comfortable with me with because our relationship is fairly awkward and cringy and silly anyway.
Yep.
So that's the thing, I feel like he goes to dad for like the traditional stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because with my daughter, there's a great relationship I have with my daughter in that way. Yeah. And it is, you could talk to me about anything. Mm-hmm. And I have gone everywhere with her on this because I protect her, I care about her, I love her, and I want to impart with her the knowledges that I have. Yeah. And, so it's interesting how the relationship has been in our home with my daughter and then with my sons and the conversations we have as sons. And, there's been a couple times where, a father-son conversation is not necessarily the same you have with a father-daughter.
No.
it's just the gender difference maybe. Who, or the
Dynamics of the
Yeah.
that dynamic is just different. And it's weird to me because I don't understand it. I didn't have that kind of relationship with either of my parents,
Right.
so I have no framework for what these potentially could look like. Although I was absolutely a daddy's girl. Like, he taught me how to fight. He taught me how to play poker. He taught me how to play football. Like, he taught me how to throw a punch. Like, I was absolutely a daddy's girl. But as far as like depth of relationship, we didn't have that. So I don't really have a framework. I just know that to keep my kids safe, I have to be safe for them.
Yeah.
And
I hear
that's
you.
whatever it takes, And not only that, to bring it back to the community, for them to know that I am so safe that they can offer me to their friends.
Bingo.
That is what I want. I
That's
want for
huge.
them to reach out and see someone and be like, just come over to my mom's house. Come over to my house. My mom's home.
Yeah.
She'll make you a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Just come hang out.
Yeah, she's chill.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
chill.
don't worry.
She's chill, but in the way that's safe.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no, you can't bring, handles of vodka over to my mom's house. She's not that chill.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, she's not that chill.
No doobies.
No, yeah, you can't do that. Mom's not going to let that fly. But if you can't go home, you can come here.
Excellent.
That's what I want. That's what I've always wanted because I didn't have that.
I love it. I love it. I mean, you're a beautiful product of your upbringing
Thank you.
and your education, your academics. You've got this blend that your kids hopefully are going to come through with flying colors.
I hope so too.
I feel it.
And Marin is oddly good soil for that.
Yeah.
It is as insular as it is as the bubble, as it is known as. It's good soil for our kids to grow in.
Love it.
Yeah,
Oh, it's huge.
yeah.
I get it loud
makes
and
a
clear.
big difference.
I think it's interesting because when you look at the minority environment in Marin County, and when it comes to drug use, I've said this before, for some reason, the Hispanic and African American communities don't get bottled up the same way that I see in the data the white privileged kids or the white middle class, upper class kids, however you want to say it.
I honestly think it's because it's not so insular.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, and cautionary tales all over the place in BIPOC communities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't hide that from our kids. Like, so and so is dealing with this. You see him on the street. You know who that is. You know what's being done for him or what we can't do. Like, I was exposed to drug addiction and drug abuse and death for various reasons at a very young age. They didn't hide that from me, but they did give me the opportunity to process it.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you make bad decisions. This is what happens when things go wrong. This is what we're doing for that family.
Yep.
As a result of what they're going through. You know
I
what
love
I
it.
mean? And
I love it.
that is BIPOC communities. That is the Hispanic community. That is the African American community. They band together. Their children are not ignorant of the hardships of the world.
Yep. I agree.
And I think that makes a
I do. One more thing. So March 29th, Marin County Office of Education is hosting, along with the School Law Enforcement Partnership, a fentanyl community evening.
I just got my invitation today.
So it's 6 p.m. to 7:30.
Okay.
I'll be moderating. We have 5 different students coming in, 2 from Redwood High, 1 from Archie Williams, 1 from Novato High, and 1 from San Rafael High.
Okay.
Very strong students. I've been working with them. And also we have the DA Special Agent in charge of the San Francisco Field Division, Wade R. Shannon. He's coming in to share regional and local information regarding fentanyl.
Excellent.
So it'll be an excellent evening. Everybody is welcome to attend. Tuesday, March 29th, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. So get your Zoom link.
Excellent. We'll have that for you guys up on our website or our Instagram or our Facebook.
Twitter.
Not Twitter. We don't Twitter. I think we did pretty good today. Our
Yep.
donut wasn't so big. It was a nice,
No, we kept it
reasonable
tight.
sized donut. We have coming next week. Melina Boyd, and Michelle
Drake.
And we are going to bring them into the conversation about fentanyl, and we'll discuss a little bit more about what's going to be happening during the webinar on the 29th.
Great.
And what's being done within the community to really tackle this issue, and all the different collaborative and coalitions and community work that people are coming together to really deal with this issue down to 6th grade on. I mean,
Yep.
it is.
It is. It's brutal. I mean, it is a heck of a landscape.
Yeah.
And I think you just got to be aware of where the dangers are. And the report outs at the SLEP meeting yesterday afternoon were pretty heavy duty. That's what most of the meeting was, because our previous meeting in January was really focused on fentanyl. But the report outs from different school sites, and, sexting is just one of the worst,
It's a bad plan.
Oh, terrible. Come
Horrible
on.
idea.
It's
the whole thing is a horrible idea.
The boyfriend saying, "Oh, please, let me just take that picture, just for me."
Nope.
It goes viral.
Nope.
And then the girl is, and we have had suicides, not in Marin that we know of, but I do know some high-profile suicides that happened because the girl's physical body pictures were released to all the student body. She couldn't live with herself, and that was it. Game over. And horrific. That's not what we want.
I want to put a pin in that, because that is that's a little soapbox when it comes that I have about the taboo of owning your body and knowing your body and being confident in your body, and why I feel like we need to start reframing a bodily autonomy for our youngsters in a way that makes them feel confident to say, no, you can't have this picture.
Yep.
This is my body. It's not yours for consumption like that. It's not yours for consumption. That is an important message that I think we need to start teaching our young kids, is that their bodies are theirs, and they're not available for anybody else's consumption.
I love that, because are you involved with the Teen Girls Conference?
No, but I want to be.
You should be. That's like March 20. It's coming up right around the corner.
It's going to be next year. I'm hoping. I would like to go. Thank you so much for joining us for Donuts for Breakfast. This is an abrupt stop, and I apologize. We'll get better at this with the pre-recording moving forward. But we will see you next week. I will put out on Facebook what the new release times are going to be, so you can catch the show on our Facebook and on our YouTube page. We'll have a couple more guests from other than Mr. Mark Dale, who will be here infinitum.
Thank you. No bio.
And
bio.
we'll
no
the bio is going to happen one day. Thank you
day.
so much. Don't forget to share a smile, share your story. It might save someone's life, and continue to be people.